Hello, welcome to Module 2 of Become the CFO of Your Own Life. And in this module, we are going to unpack how to get your financial health check done such that you can determine your financial health status. Now, many a time, financial fitness for many seems like a far-fetched dream where people say, I don't have a relationship with my money, I don't know my financial health status. And I've heard a couple of people saying, they have a toxic relationship or the money keeps them up at night. Well, in Module 2, we are going to deep dive into how you can prepare your own financial health check and calculate the very financial vitals that are important for you to determine your health check. So now I always say doing a financial health check allows us to calculate and determine our health status. Now, you may be wondering, how do I go about this? And many a time people ask me, TK, I don't know and I don't like numbers, so why are you forcing me to do that? Well, in the first lesson, or the first activity rather, is we are going to work through an exercise where you are going to help Juliana, a 28-year-old female who is a business analyst, determine her financial health status. So why do I look forward to this particular exercise is I'm going to give you a couple of numbers that represent Juliana's financial commitments on a month-to-month basis. And what we basically need to do is we need to work through her spending plan. We need to help Juliana determine how she should allocate and prioritize the expenses versus the income that she had. In the previous module, Juliet spoke about firstly, identify your sources of income, secondly, identifying your expenses, and then lastly, analyzing the financial statements, which can either be a balance sheet or income statement. So now that we are in Module 2, I'm actually going to challenge you guys to work through Juliana's expenses and income and then help her prioritize which expenses she should focus on in order to achieve her financial dreams. And then in the second lesson, I'm actually going to give you templates that you are going to use to determine your own financial health status. Firstly, you're going to start by identifying your expenses. So I'm going to challenge you to write down all your monthly expenses or monthly commitments in the templates that I will provide. And then secondly, you will obviously, like Juliet mentioned in Module 1, you will obviously identify your sources of income. If your only source of income is a salary or you have other sources of income, you will then list them in the template, in the spending plan template I will share and I'll provide with you. And then we will decide and you will determine whether you are financially healthy or not. And what I love about that particular exercise is once you've listed all your expenses versus your income, you are then able to identify what needs to change, where you need to cut down, or what you need to get rid of completely. And many a time people always think it's always about cutting down the expenses. Well, the good thing is you can also increase your sources of income. This is where you start thinking of a side hustle. This is when you start thinking of passive income via investments that Julia spoke about. So we'll do that. And once you have identified your expenses and your income, we will then move to the exciting part, doing the calculations in terms of the ratios. Now, why I love this particular exercise is you get to identify and calculate how much of your income goes towards your savings, which is your savings ratio. So you will have the formulas provided to you. What you need to do is you need to sit down and calculate how much of your income goes towards your savings. The second ratio that you will determine today is your expense to income ratio. An expense to income ratio helps us determine how much of our expenses as a percentage of our total income goes towards paying expenses. So what you'll then do is you will then go back to your spending plan, which you did in the first exercise, or the second exercise rather, and then you'll determine how much your total expenses are versus your total income as a percentage. The third ratio that we'll work through is your debt service ratio. Now, this ratio is important for us to identify how much of our income goes to paying off debt. Now, in the workshop, we will determine the benchmarks that are appropriate or recommended. But however, for this particular pre-workshop exercise, my challenge to you is to sit down to calculate and determine how much you pay towards your car, your home, your credit card, your personal loan, and any other loans that you pay. And then once you've determined that particular calculation, we will then divide it by your total income to determine what your percentage is. The fourth ratio we'll work through today in the workshop and in the pre-workshop is your liquidity ratio. Now, this is where we compare your current assets, which are your short-term assets or investments, which fall within a 12-month basis or a 12-month period, versus your current liabilities, which are things that you need to pay within a 12-month period. And then what you will do is you will calculate the total current assets you have, you will divide it by the total current liabilities that you have, and then you'll multiply that to find the ratio. And then again, we'll decide what the ratio is or what the recommended is in the workshop. And then the last calculation is your net worth calculation. So in this particular calculation, you will be determining how much you own, which are your total assets, versus how much you owe, versus which is your total liabilities. And then the formula there will be your total assets, what you own, versus minus what you own, which will determine your net worth calculation. Now, these templates will be provided for you in the pre-workshop, and of course, if you are unable to do it in the workshop, we'll also share it in the actual workshop on Saturday. But for you to prepare and get your mindset ready for the workshop, it is important for you to work through these 3 exercises. The first one being the Juliana case study, which will be provided on a template and emailed to you guys. And then secondly, you determining your spending plan in terms of identifying your income versus your total expenses. And then the third one will be working through the different ratios that I mentioned. And then lastly, to close the workshop, we will be working through your personal balance sheet. Now, you will recall that in module 1, Juliet referred to analysis of a balance sheet and an income statement. Now, when it comes to becoming the CFO of your own life, it then means that you as an individual need to know your balance sheet. So what are the components of a balance sheet, or what is referred to as a statement of financial position? In this case, I'm going to call it the personal statement of financial position. It starts with your assets, and assets can be broken up into 2 components: your non-current assets, which are things such as your property, your other properties, your vehicle, equipment, furniture, and fittings. So what you will do is you will calculate how much your 2021 assets are versus your 2020. The second assets that you want to be thinking about are your investments. What type of investments do you have? Collective investment schemes. You may be having government bonds. Juliet spoke about a money market or a fixed interest. So what kind of assets do you have? What are your 2021 assets versus your 2020 assets? And then we want to monitor the movement between those. And then obviously you'll have your current assets, which will speak to the liquidity ratio I spoke about. So this is where you will list all your current assets, or which fall within a 12-month period. For example, your fixed deposits, your current account or your check account, your savings account. And then what we'll do is we'll add all these assets up to get to a total assets figure. The second part of the balance sheet or the statement of financial position will be your liabilities, starting with your non-current liabilities. For example, your mortgage bond or a personal loan that spans over 3 to 5 years. So what you will do is you will write down that list of your non-current liabilities for 2021 and for 2020 rather, sorry. And then lastly, you'll look at your current liabilities. These are liabilities that are less than 12 months or payable within the 12-month period. Examples could be a credit card or an overdraft facility or a personal loan that is short-term. And then what you'll do is you'll add all your total liabilities, and then we will determine what your net worth calculation is. Reminder, it's your total assets versus your total liabilities to get to your net worth calculation. So I hope you're excited, and I hope you are looking forward to this program on Saturday, and I hope you will come with your figures ready, because what we want you to get out of this program is we want you to know your financial figures and to have a relationship with your financial numbers such that you are able to determine where the changes need to be made. And again, it's a safe space. So if you are in the negative, don't beat yourself up. The whole reason we are having this is for you to prepare yourself such that you start 2022, because we're going to 2022, such that you start 2022 looking excited and ready to kick some butt when it comes to your finances. So I hope you're excited. I'm looking forward to engaging with you guys further on Saturday, and let's get our personal finances right. And I always say, let's enjoy our money. But for us to enjoy our money, we need to have a solid, positive relationship with it. So I will see you Saturday bright and early with your numbers for us to unpack what your financial health status is, and if it's not looking good, for us to work towards getting it to a position that makes you proud. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Cheers.